And we are recording on Tuesday, November 11th, 2025, Veterans Day, 12:08 p.m. Eastern Time with Mr. Halsey English, Mr. Ian Burlingame, Mr. Tom Luongo. You guys can go to the description. It's all the links for all of them and, whatever. But as I was just telling them before, somebody informed me that EM is running cover for Israel, that Tom is, I didn't even know what they said. I think it was a joke. I think it was
I'm
something about,
absolutely. I was say I am. I'm also running cover for Israel, and we all know that we all work for Halsey.
I would fuck yeah.
Exactly.
Well, then the last
7K
comment
a
is,
tweet, baby.
and the last
7K a
comment
tweet.
and the last comment was, and Halsey's Jewish. I'm like, that's your banger. That's your conclusive evidence, and he's
Tom,
Jewish.
when
Okay.
Tommy asked if I wanted to do the show with all you guys, I said yes, but it needs to be named The Jew and His Goyim.
Yeah, the Jew, the Jew. What is
Let me go
that?
get my tiny hat. Hold on. For a
Yeah, it's
second. Here we
so
go. Here we
I
go.
don't, and it's
I'll do it this way. Here we go.
yeah, no, people really.
There we
People,
go.
people really, yeah. And somebody else commented, they're like, I like the bald ones, but I'd really appreciate if you replaced like Dave Collum with EM. And I said, start your own podcast and do whatever you like. Shut the fuck up. Like, consume the free content. And now what is this Imam Tom? What the fuck is that?
No, he's a villager. He's a villager.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
about,
exactly.
He's
Oh
a
yeah, that's definitely me.
yeah.
he's
That
a
doesn't like.
I'm
Calabrian.
just looking for my 77 fucking virgins, guys.
I will fucking. I
72.
72. Oh, I'm
72,
sorry.
and they
Oh
don't
no.
specify.
Screw
and
that,
they
dude.
don't,
I want 77 inflation.
and they don't specify gender.
they don't. Correct. Um,
Actually, they do. They say
Yeah, I know, I know.
72 virgins and 72 hairless boys.
Oh,
I don't like that.
oh.
I don't
Hmm.
fucking. That's all
Lovely.
right. Well, that's not. Well, anyway, so that's what this show is. So, it is. It's off to its own stuff.
We're off to a banging start this
It's off
morning.
to a
Right.
banging
Yeah.
fuck. It's off to a banging
So,
fucking start.
what are we
Yeah.
doing after the Blazing Saddles opening?
I don't know. I
I mean,
know.
do
I
we
I
feel
don't
go?
like,
know.
How do
Should
we
we
go?
insult
How do
black
we go
people
up from
next,
there? I
or
don't
maybe
know.
Indians?
yeah. I don't know. I feel like
Do we recreate scenes from Monty Python and the Life of Brian?
Ooh.
yeah. I don't.
Interesting retarded fact for you guys. Spaceballs 2 is coming out next year, right? And Mel
Merchandise.
Brooks is 99 years old.
Yeah,
Whoa. Jehovah
yeah,
Dark Helmet.
Hmm.
Merchandising. Yeah, no, it's a solid one.
yeah. Spaceballs,
Merchandising.
the flamethrower. The
Yeah,
kids
yeah,
love this.
merchandising, the flamethrower. Um, yeah, that kind of seemed to be the no matter what you do, you're running cover for someone, and it really is like, and let's also be real, there are people running for cover for people. That's what intelligence agencies do, and that's what their assets do. But it does seem to be the lowest brow comment about anything. And of course, me saying that on a podcast means nothing because that's exactly what an asset would say. Yeah, I get the point that I'm never going to convince it. But when I look at like how these shows are set up, and it's literally me texting someone and saying, "Do you want to do a show?" Like LOL, and they're like, "Yeah," and like I see the back end of it, but the consumer sees some op being run by either Qatar or Israel or Langley or Shanghai or the KGB. I mean,
Fun.
Tom, yeah, and then, Tom, you've been accused of being an asset of not just Israel, of like multiple different countries,
Oh yeah,
which
oh yeah.
it,
I'm everybody's bitch, dude. And
I have been
that's
asked on the same day if Tom is a Nazi or if Tom is a pro-Arab or if Tom is pro-Israeli. Like if he's an Israel shell. I've been asked all three in legit, like they thought they were honestly asking me. They're like, is Tom like working for the Qataris? I'm like, what? They're like, is
yes,
he working
yes, he
for
is.
Israel? What? And I'm
But
like, well, Tom's really smart, so he's probably working for all of them.
in
You
the
know,
same
like
in the same
or
Twitter
or maybe
thread,
I'm just really smart and there's no comma there. Right? This is what I say to people all the time. Like, just because I'm smarter than you doesn't mean that I have to be working for somebody else. I've had a long conversation with Joaquin Flores about this, right? And Joaquin is a guy who was actually recruited by the FBI or by the CIA when he was in college in
ouch.
California. Had long conversations with him about this, and he, of course, chose to not you know to not take them up on their invitation, you know, and then was a communist for a while, and then fell out with the communists because he realized that was a grift. And I remember, after the first time I had him on the podcast, we spent about an hour afterwards, like going over our post mortem, like me with my libertarianism and him with his with his communism, and we both kind of came to the same conclusion that it's all fucked, right? And that's how I know Joaquin. For example, that's how I know Joaquin is on the up and up, because he makes no bones about, oh, this is, by the way, this is my history, and therefore, because this is my history, I can see their operations in real time because I'm very good at it, which is one of the reasons why I see him as a trusted voice in the space. Even if you disagree with his conclusions or you disagree with his observations, it's fine. But at least you know where it's coming from. It's coming from a place of honest inquisition, and sometimes he gets it right, sometimes he gets it wrong. He sadly for Joaquin, he gets it right more often than anybody really should. So that's all.
So I have a
Yeah,
question for you, Tom.
sure.
Why is Trump saying that he's going to fire Jerome Powell within the next few months?
Well,
He just said
the
it in
next
an interview this morning.
in the next few months, like his
Yeah.
term is up in May.
So
Yeah.
then maybe that maybe he just means he's going to let him go in May.
Well, yeah, he's not going to. Powell's not running for reconfirmation, and
Ah, okay.
right, his
I don't
term is
follow
up.
that close enough.
Yeah,
So
no. So it's just that simple. He's going to get rid of Powell. Or we all know that
Powell's
we've
going to
always known
leave.
that Powell was never going to be a
Yeah.
three-term Fed chair,
Yes.
right? Powell's job is done. He implemented SOFR. He got rid of the 2% inflation target. His job is now finished.
Well, and he kept the banks alive through the worst of it.
Yeah, and
mhm.
through
Yeah.
the attacks on the
Yeah.
system,
Yeah.
right? Yep.
Yeah.
So
His job's
especially
done.
I
the
got the most
SOFR.
interesting message before, and it said, "What makes the 2025 crash different than 2029, 2000, or 2008?" And they said that in each one of those crashes, one specific sector of the economy was in a bubble and basically exploded. And this time, all three are in a bubble. That's stocks, mortgages, and I mean stocks, housing, and bond. And went into a very lengthy economic discussion about it. But I was like, I didn't never even thought about it that way. So a lot of the tricks the Fed has that they've used to prop up the economy in the past, I don't know if they could do it again.
I don't
It's
know that they
Treasury's turn
necessarily
now.
need to. I
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
the bigger question.
Yeah.
The big
Okay.
question is that who was directing the capital into that particular um
Industry
sector and
segment.
then pulled all their money out all at once.
Yeah.
You have
Hmm.
to start thinking, you have to go back over our history and start thinking in terms of it being actual honest to God vandalism and financial attack, as opposed to just the consequence of poor policy.
Okay.
We've all we and that's where I know, Halsey, that's where you and I, we cut our teeth on thinking along those lines, and having I've fully shifted now into everything is an attack and vandalism. And
Hmm.
as I go back over the history of the Eurodollar system, I can't help but see it that way. At the very least, I have to continue to honestly, do the inquisition along that vector and see what doesn't fit that model, right? Which
It's
is
the
why, of course, sometimes I look like a shill for Israel, and sometimes I look like a shill for the Russians, and sometimes I look like a shill for the Fed, yada yada yada. But all I'm doing is doing what you do. I'm like, at this point, I'm fully in the tank for fuck Britain. I want to understand the limit to which their power has expressed itself in American financial, fiscal, and foreign policy over the last 75 or 80 years.
the financial.
I may overcorrect, right? Right. And I get yelled at by Dexter White about this all the time behind the scenes, which is fair. That's his job, is to keep me on track. I'm okay with that. But just so you know, that's the situation. So if that makes me look like a shill, well, then I am, and we'll just move on. And I'll take my 30 pieces of silver, my $7,000, and I don't know, I'll buy
And
some
your
tofu
72
because it's
virgins.
fucking cold up here. So
Don't forget your 72 virgins.
my yeah no
The Fed
I
isn't the Fed is necessary for, the central banks are necessary for the financialist kill chain.
mhm.
Now you have two major powers, Russia and China, that decoupled from that and
Mhm.
have pretty much removed the financialist kill chain from within their own borders and their own economies. We're now doing the same. And so now, right, what are the two enumerated powers in the Westphalian Inglorious Revolution systems? The two enumerated powers are the legal use of force by government and between governments, and the control of your exchequer. Well, the exchequer is not the Fed, it's the Treasury.
Hmm. Well,
So
that's what I
now
wonder. Is this pushing us into a new war?
power, no, it's not a new war, it's a decoupling. and it's shifting power. The Fed is not internally focused. The Fed is externally focused. The Treasury is
Hmm.
internally focused
Yeah, that I would agree with.
primarily,
Yeah.
right?
It
And
has,
now
well, at
we're
least the Fed has been, and up until I would say I would argue Powell is trying to reverse that, right? He's trying to get back to the pre 1935 Fed, which was designed to support the commercial paper market. And
but who owned the paper commercial market? The
oh, I
commercial
know,
paper
yeah.
market at the
So the
point was
international
London and
banks, yada yada yada.
Amsterdam, and
Of course,
yeah. So
of course.
the whole, where are we heading now? Do we do away with the Fed, or does the Fed focus externally and stay focused on that? And that's the external currency controls
Hmm.
structure, and then we use Treasury for the internal, and the internal is the backstop for the Fed, and not the other way around. With oversight from Treasury, it's certainly what China and Russia are doing,
Yeah,
and it's working.
and it is working. I agree.
See, it
It's
was
been
EM that got
hard.
me thinking about this, and I was noticing that a big part of Trump's policy is building, whether it
Mhm.
be building external structures in other countries or having external investment into America to build here. There's big money for the economy and for economic growth in both. And instead of exporting debt, we're exporting
Yeah.
innovation. And
Mhm.
that's a new one. We haven't done that in a while.
Well, but here's the problem, and this is the thing that came out this morning, which I commented on. Having just done my doctoral studies in engineering, right, interdisciplinary engineering with computational engineering focus, 80% of grad students in the United States are foreign born, and
Hmm.
most of them are from Eastern Europe, Middle East, or China, or the Far East, most predominantly China. 80% plus of the projects that get funded, right? They get paid student wages. Tom, you remember this from when you were
Mhm.
back in the day. It's way worse now. And virtually all of the venture funding and the SBIR funding goes to companies that's the technology at least is designed, developed, and managed and controlled by foreign born students. It's a vast industry. And this is what Eisenhower warned as the greater threat. Eisenhower had two warnings. One was about the military industrial complex we all pay attention to. The other one was about the science and technology industrial complex,
Mhm.
both led by the intelligence community through NSF, right? Because people need to understand NHS and NSF were chartered at the same time as the CIA, not under
Hmm.
CIA control, but the same charters.
Mhm.
So the fundamental problem that we have is that we are not an innovative nation. We have the world's top innovation centers, but those innovation centers are manned and staffed by foreigners.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying that that's right or wrong. What I'm saying is it's a reality. And so the export of technology, when we forced through dollar manipulations and we began that started the war, World War III, in its modern form. And that then forced a decoupling. What happened? We are talking, and I think rightfully so, about kicking out foreign students and all of this. Problem is, we're completely hamstringing ourselves. And a lot of those students already over the last 4 or 5 years went home
Hmm.
because their funding sources dried up. What was giving them most people think that foreign students are here on government dollars, et cetera. Many of them are here on family money,
Mhm.
and it's
That and
very
country money,
expensive.
and they
And
pay full
country,
ride.
correct, and it's very expensive. And when the fake dollars dry up in this, global
Mhm.
system, those students go home. Well, what do? They bring all their research with them. They bring all their technologies, and they are the scientists. Like something like 40% of the engineers and scientists in the United States are Chinese,
Mhm.
Hmm.
right? And so why, this whole concept and idea that we're going to be able to out innovate the world is ludicrous.
Hmm.
The world is already there because their engineers and scientists are the ones doing our innovation.
What's funny is you mentioned the SBIR program. The SBIR program is only 10% of yearly budget by law of both the NSF and the NIH. So these companies here can hire a Chinese engineer to build something or a Chinese scientist to build something, get the funding for it to build as a small business interest in the US, and then get the bulk of the funding outside of the country through the R01 process, which is the other 90% of the
Correct.
budget.
Correct. And it starts
So,
even earlier because they use the grad students, master's and doctoral
mhm.
level and some post-grad level at university prices, which are, for all intents and purposes, just above slave labor, right?
hmm
Slave
And
wages.
that's a completely separate program from SBIR called
Correct.
STTR, where they give
Correct.
it to a small company and then that company transfers the
Correct.
technology to a for-profit
Correct.
concept. Yep.
Correct. And there's a whole cottage industry out there of individuals who help get those loans. And
I'm one
what
of them.
is,
I did it for 15 years. For
oh,
15 years, I
interesting.
helped companies get
And
those
you have
grants,
to
so I
work
know
on
all
a
this.
whole charter of lists. These are the only things approved to get the funding, et cetera. Well, the rest of the
Hmm
world isn't limited by that either.
Yep.
So, and terribly sorry, Tom, I'll turn it over to you,
Oh,
but
you're good. You're good.
my,
I don't know any of that. I don't know anything about this stuff.
oh,
I'm
it
just
blew my mind when I
enjoying.
went
No, go
into
for
my
it.
doctoral studies here. Um, we need to stop thinking we're going to innovate our way out of this. We're
No
not.
way.
Mm.
But I don't know. I'd kind of want a builder there because there is an immense amount of building we got to do. But then we got another problem. The building we need to do is infrastructure and not housing. But
Hmm
most local governments are all about housing and couldn't give fuck all about infrastructure
Right.
because they don't make money off infrastructure unless it's some revenue generating thing that they can sell bonds about, sell bonds to.
Yep.
Yeah. To
The
them, it's a
all
cost. To
the
them, infrastructure is a cost center. If you
It's
listen
a
to
cost.
You
All
should
yeah,
they
see
care
what's going
about.
on in my area. I live in suburban New Jersey, right?
Mm,
You can't drive a half a mile in any direction without seeing a new apartment building going up.
it's
And
because
none
of
of them can handle this is debated all the time at the council meetings and everything. Our infrastructure can't handle it. The water, the electricity, the gas, and they're giving these guys a 10-year exemption on property taxes. So they're not
yeah.
even paying for their own way.
Well, what they're looking for is to attract labor and work. So the whole thing, the point I'm getting at is it's all there. The issue that we have is that the entire system at the local community levels is rigged for illegal immigration.
Yep.
The
hmm
whole system to sustain, because the only thing the municipalities care about is revenue generating, putting money into revenue generating things.
hmm
And when they do on the building side, and I got a very close friend of mine, he's third generation builder out of Illinois, Texas, et cetera, very big builder. Everything is skewed towards home building in our economy. It's the only base of, manufacturing left. It requires an immense amount of illegal immigration, basically slaves. It's the only thing that gets approved by cities and municipalities because it gives them that future tax base. It also gives them the income tax base, right, and sales. So they'll offset 10 years for the property. Most of them don't,
hmm
though. So that's interesting in your area. But point I'm getting at is that the whole economy right now is skewed towards home building.
hmm
And that requires tens of millions of people to keep pouring into the country to take up those homes, right? And
You're
then
also
there's
forgetting
this,
the important part. When they hire a company who goes to government bid to build some, to staff these places, right? What winds up happening is they have to hire enough Americans in management positions so they can justify pay the income tax, pay the unemployment insurance,
mm,
and to justify to the insurance company that this is on the up and up. But all the general laborers are illegal.
yeah,
So
yeah,
they may be paying income taxes, but they're not covered under unemployment. They're not covered under disability. They can't sue if something happens. So you're basically getting all these laborers that you don't have to worry about at all. If one of them gets
yeah,
hurt, you just fuck them, get them off the line and get the next one on.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. No, so I'm very interested in a builder, but what are the things we're building? And while I'm not a fan of, the fascist FDR, and he was a fascist, I mean, listen to his speeches and listen to Mussolini before World War II. It's like same guy, right? But one of the things at that time did is they built the infrastructure of the United States that we're still
Hmm
benefiting from today. And labor wise, we have the labor domestically to do that. The question becomes, what, governments survive off of taxes. Governments care about tax bases, revenues,
Yep.
right? They don't care about infrastructure. And so this is a major fight, and I don't know, I don't know how the federal government incentivizes. And really, Tom, you're down there in Florida. I think you're in Tennessee right now.
Mhm.
It's really, I think, going to take some states of saying no more of this, low-level real estate play, because that's really basically the only thing that's been going on since 2006. The United States is real estate plays
Yep.
and ancillary too. And maybe there's some states, but I don't know how they would get incentivized. I don't know how economically, financially, et cetera, this transition would happen, because the other piece is the real estate development guys are the most powerful folks with the city councils and the mayor's offices, et cetera.
It's the BLM problem. That's what I call it. The right after the Summer of Love protests in 2000, right? One of my brother-in-law, big lived hard. He's an IT guy, big high up in IT and big company. And he said to me, we pledged we were going to hire 15% of our coming workforce would be African American. And I
Yeah.
said, oh, well, I don't really care about that stuff. And he said, no, my point being, so did everyone else. There's not that many black people in the country, let
Mhm.
alone qualified to work these jobs.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with all the other industries. When someone says, I'm going to build 10,000 new housing units, they could say all they want. They're not doing it without illegals. There's not enough people
Well,
to do the jobs.
it's not just the building the houses, it's who's going to live in them,
Hmm.
Yeah,
right?
and
Same
who's
That's
going
thing.
to and,
Yeah.
and who's going to buy the mortgages and who's
and
going to
who's
do
going to
this?
buy the
Right.
mortgages,
Right.
right? And the only ones buying them now are State Street, Vanguard, and BlackRock through BlackRock
Hmm.
Well,
predominantly.
that's one of the angles on this, and so that's why I mean, if you look at what Trump has done, I'm thinking high. Now let's think high level strategy.
Yeah,
What
yeah,
has
yeah,
Trump
yeah.
done when he's gone into the trade negotiations? Not only did he negotiate the tariff rate, but he also said, look, I want some of the money back you've stolen from us over the last 70 years,
Right.
and I want you to invest it in the United States. Like, yeah, I'm bringing all this money back. He's not what he's saying, and that's what he says to us publicly. What he said to the president of South Korea and to this one and to Ursula von der Leyen is like, you people stole trillions of dollars from us. I have the receipts on this. I want X, Y, and Z now, and you're going to
Hmm.
pay me. Fuck you, pay me. Right. So we have to start thinking like we've got mob bosses, right? We have to start thinking like mob bosses because that's how he did this. So what's he going to build? Well, he's going to build. We've got crumbling infrastructure everywhere. Like
Hmm.
you're right that you both are completely right. We're not going to innovate our way out of this.
No,
Obviously, where
no.
we're still ahead in some areas, we'll be able to maintain those advantages. But the reality is that just rebuilding the infrastructure of the country, we we have to get out of this mindset that we're the great America.
Yeah.
We have to start looking at ourselves as Russia in 1999
Yes. Yes.
because that's where we are culturally, politically, economically, infrastructurally. We have more left,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But we have to start thinking like we're in that mindset. Okay. That's why the kids are going, that's why the kids are pushing right, right? That's why, in America in 10 years, we're going to be saying the same thing, in America that they said about Russia 10 years ago, which was, in
Ugh, I,
1990.
I can't get on the train with you, Tom. I want to,
Tom's
but I
right.
can't get on the train with
Tom's
you
right.
because there's one thing. Me and Tommy talked about this last week. The one area that America has massive growth potential is in weaponry. Right? The other countries are out innovating us, but we have the ability to do so because we have the testing grounds to do so. We have the deep water navy that can test naval weapons. We have the air superiority that can test.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is that the room to innovate with private industry, like Tesla, like places like Raytheon,
Mhm.
like places like that, is there.
No,
Not
it's
saying
not.
that.
No, it's
Look,
not.
It's there.
I'm
let's
not.
not let's
I
not
come
let's
from
not
the
make this a
military.
black or white. Let's not make this a black and white issue.
Yeah.
Can't innovate.
Okay.
Can't. There's going to be areas where we're going to be innovative, and there's going to be areas where we're not innovative. And the
Well,
question
Right.
is, how much is this capital that's going to be deployed? How much of it is going to go towards
well, let's,
innovation
Tom,
versus
if
infrastructure? And that's
I totally
that's
agree,
the question we
but
should be asking.
let's pause because I want to hear from there. But Halsey, you need to understand what you just said. What you
Hmm.
just said is we keep the world at war so that we can continue to innovate and have a
Sure.
major industry in the United States. That's
Sure.
what you just said. That's the most
I didn't say
British
I want
shit
that
I've
to happen.
ever
I'm
heard
saying
out
it
of
is
your
what
mouth.
happens.
Well, it's not working anymore because
I
look what just
agree.
happened with all of our advanced technology in the Indian-Pakistan conflict, which
Hmm.
got shut down pretty quick because all of our Western tech got undone by China like that. Again, back to who's innovating in their industries, in their aviation and military and naval, et cetera, industries. The very same people who are our engineers here.
Mm-hmm.
who are our scientists here. They're now back home. We are no longer the superior technological force in any industry. We stopped training our kids for that. We trained them over the last 30 years on woke. And that's
I
not something
agree
we
with
turn
you, but I
around.
also agree that there are a lot of foreign-born people that have come here because the money is so good here for these things. And it's not necessarily Americans, like meaning native-born Americans, but I'm saying there are a lot of people that move here to enter the technology sector that weren't born here.
So you would have the world stay at war so that the
Me,
United
I
States could have a
do.
major.
You're talking to the wrong person.
All right,
I would
well,
rather the world go back to fucking pre-Civil War times and we go back to farming and feudalism. So you got the
No.
wrong
What he's
person.
saying, what he's saying is, we have the ability to innovate, right?
Hmm.
In those areas. The downstream effect of that is
you have
that
to sell
by
them.
continuing, you use those technologies in other areas. When you're talking about doing air testing, we're not talking about aerospace. You're talking about making sure that our aerospace industry is at the commercial level is then improved. Look, when I was doing this shit 10,
Mhm.
15 years ago, and this is, when I was in that space, the high energy super alloy space, because that's where we were trying to move the nickel
Yeah.
boron that I was
Yeah.
working
Yeah.
on into. And so I did a lot of, research and understanding, like, single crystal, super alloys, all the, like, we were so far ahead on the material science there. No one was fucking touching us. And I don't think anybody's caught up to us. And I'll be honest,
Hmm.
I'll be frank and honest with you. Like, again, let's not oversell the positions in order to make a rhetorical point. I think that's
Hmm.
the big thing here. I think because we're all capable of doing this, because we are all strategic thinkers. You have to remember that there's plenty of areas where um, there's going to be a fight for dominance in a particular industry. But ultimately what matters is, um, what's the purpose of deploying any of these innovations and technologies in the first place? It's to get people back to a higher quality of life and a higher standard of living. And it's not just
Hmm.
about jobs and houses and
Yeah.
all of
No,
these things
no, no, no. Yeah.
that we obsess about when we look at the fucking economic calendar on investing.com in the morning, which is what I do every fucking day, right? No, it's about changing the mindset of the kids and the people. We are So how much of that money that's going to be deployed has to go to basic infrastructure in order to be able to innovate?
Yes.
Well, we
Hmm.
need a lot of fucking electricians and plumbers and steam fitters and all this shit that Mike Rowe's been saying for fucking 20 years, guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Like,
By the
Exactly.
way,
and
we're gonna have a
Exactly.
glut of them soon. We're gonna have a glut of them soon. You know why? Starlink. Because once
yeah,
cell phones stop working on cell phone towers and the lines aren't going to have to be maintained at the same level, there's
right.
going to be a lot of people who know a lot of things about installing technology and infrastructure that are going to be looking for work. And I'm telling you that that's going to be something that we're going to see. Government's going to have to allocate resources in another direction. It's just a question of where, and I'm not sure where that is.
Mm-hmm.
But we're getting to the point where cell phones will not operate on cell phone towers for much longer.
which
There's no
would be a,
reason.
which I'll be honest with you, which would be a great thing, and it gets rid of a lot
Of
of NIMBY
course.
effects and a variety of things. And
Hmm.
like, so there's a lot of shit happening here. There's a lot of things are moving quickly, and and so, but what we should be focused on now is, how do we stabilize the cultural? I'm focused on stabilizing the cultural imperatives at this point. You've got to stabilize the generational divides. You've got to get we have to get the trust of these kids, because they're being offered two radically different on the surface, but exactly the same forms of nihilism.
See,
And it's
I'm with the M on this one. I think, and maybe I look at it from a different angle. I see the ethnic violence aspect, but I don't see it as North versus South Civil War. I see it as Bloods versus Crips. Okay,
well,
like
well, no,
I think
I'm
you're.
saying it's the great. I'm saying it's the accelerationist Nick Fuentes right versus the Mondami
Hmm.
Marxist left. These are both grips, and
Yes.
they're both being presented to us as the only option, because guess what? Trump's not moving fast enough, and the system is unsustainable, and it's all bullshit. And that's all a fucking British psyop, guys. I'm
Well,
It
sorry.
is, and
I
it's
want to.
even worse than you think because they're not fighters.
Right,
These people, the Groypers, the communists, they're not going to fight. They
right.
don't know how, and they're too big a bunch of pussies to do so.
Well,
They
but
love sitting online and causing shit, but they're not going to go out and fight. The
No,
people that are going to
they're
fight are when
Trotsky and they're Trotsky and Lenin.
right? But the people that are going to fight are the massive Hispanic population that's here that really isn't bothering anyone, to tell you the truth. I'm not talking about the illegals, I'm talking about the legals.
Right.
Okay? They're not bothering anybody, but they're getting brought into this kind of ethnic quarrel where they
Mhm.
want to say, like, we play baseball too. You know, like it's
yeah, but
we're not
so let's so give me a second, gentlemen,
sure.
and Tom, to what you're saying, and you, Halsey. The problem that we are having, and I think Tom, you and I talked this before,
Mhm.
is, and maybe in our private phone call, but there is only so much can be done at the federal government.
Sure.
And we've all been conditioned for the last 40, 50 years to always look to government, federal government.
Hmm.
Not only is there a limited amount they can do, they're not supposed to be doing these things. And what
Mhm.
we're not
Hmm.
hearing, because the power blocks in the different states are still all at war with one another and with, their future, what America should be. And because of that, you have very few states, even there in Florida, that are actually doing the things necessary to connect with the center of their, 50% of their population,
Mhm.
of the young, by figuring out how do we fight this home builder thing as the only industry, how do we expand industry? How do we reach these kids? How do we, you know, all of these types of things have to be innovated. I don't remember what it was, but there's a map that's like there's really 12 United States that break down by ethnic ideology, cultural ideologies, et cetera. And I'm not seeing anything. I still see two things, particularly amongst the wealthy elite families that I talk to, who are still virtually all of them are just out of it. They either think it's all going to collapse and they want to survive, or they think it's all going to be saved by the government, whether it's this government or another one. But what I'm not seeing is the same similar complexity and sophistication of effort that's happening under the current administration at the federal level, both internal to the United States and externally at the states levels. And until we
No,
see that, you're going to have this siren call of these two camps,
agreed. No,
right?
I agree. And
You know what?
and
I
that's being
agree with you. Oh, go ahead, Tom.
I was going to say, I was going to say, yeah, no, you're right, and that's what the op is. The op is to break these states up and to
Correct.
yeah, like all of a
Correct.
sudden, Democrats are now talking about states' rights,
Yes.
Hmm.
like
Yes.
for the first time ever,
Yes.
ever, right?
Yes.
Ever,
Yeah.
even in the run up to the Civil War,
Uh,
they were not the states' rights guys. Like you know what I mean? Like no, so
Hmm.
like think
st-
about it. Like they've now decided that they're going to try and die on the hill of turning Trump into Lincoln, and they are. And I'm still like I'm when you get into the Anglo-Dutch mindset, it's all about geography. When you look
correct.
at the map of the United States
Correct.
and you look at where the Democratic governors
Yeah.
are, and you look at where Venezuela is, and you look at Cuba, and you look at what's left, it's very clear Trump and company understand that they are running an operation to seize all the ports and they're trying to protect the Panama Canal and the Mississippi River Valley.
We do not have a Monroe Doctrine if we can't control, we don't own the two Pacific and Atlantic Ocean security buffers if they own all of the ports along the coast.
Hmm.
That's the
Bingo.
that's the piece I wrote,
Yep.
right? So,
Yep.
know, at the federal level, they're doing everything that they can. What does concern me is that I'm not seeing, like Florida's a key state. Texas is pretty much lost. If you look at these things that are happening in Texas, it's like it's very different in California or New York. It just wears a different face, right? Wears cowboy boots and a cowboy hat. But if you look at the politics and you look at the business and you look at everything else that's going on, it's basically New York or California. Well, that makes sense. They had to take the Gulf of the Gulf of America. So, you know, um, the reason that this psyop, this war fighting, here's the two camps, here's the Germans, here's the American, or whatever, right? The Allies, the Axis. That's what this Groyper and whatever the hell this, communist thing is. It's the same
It is. It's
thing.
fascist versus
It's
communist all over again.
exactly that's the book I wrote, The Eternal War. There's two factions of resentfuls. One is straight up National Socialist, and the other one's straight up Marxist,
Mhm.
communist. And they're at war with one another, and they're trying to draw everybody into those camps. Well, the reason the PSYOP is working, the British, Anglo, Dutch, Vatican operation is working, is because the states are not, the elite in states are still so caught up in state level warfare and, national level warfare. They're not paying attention to their own communities. I mean,
Uh,
I look here in Idaho, right? Idaho, and we've got these communities of Muslims and others dropped in rural fucking northern Idaho. What
mhm,
the hell are they doing up there? There's no industry up there. There's no, what there is up there? A fuck ton of natural resources
mhm,
and hydropower,
mhm.
right? And there isn't
Here's
a,
where I have the problem though with what both of you are saying
uh,
is it's not that I disagree with you, but the Constitution of the United States did one thing for the government that made it different from all the others. I say this all the time. We have to hide our socialism, right? Because there's too many safeguards against just straight up implementing it. So we have to hide it, right? What do? We don't give away welfare. We give people tax breaks that are high and above what they pay in taxes. So you wind up paying negative taxes. It's the same thing as welfare, right? But there's two states that are trying two different things, and you mentioned them both. You have Florida, where they're showing you the kind of more libertarian thinking. We're going to turn it over to the people and let the chips fall where they may. That's why they're doing school choice. That's why they're eliminating the income tax. That's why
Property
they're
tax.
property tax. I mean, like they're turning the money over to the people with the faith that by doing that, they're going to usher in economic prosperity, right? Businesses are going to want to move there because people want to move there ad infinitum. Texas, I think they're taking the absolute wrong approach, but it's still an approach. They're selling assets, and most of their assets are in land, right? So they're selling Hindu temples, they're selling Muslim cities, they're selling, like immigrant communities. That's not going to help. That's just going to turn it blue as blue can be,
Mhm.
right?
or it
But
basically already is. Yeah.
Right. But Florida has done this great job. And before they did this job, they organized their political system in a very, very positive way. The GOP moved to strengthen their own party system so that they were able to turn a purplish state into a blood red state, right? There are people talking about moving the stock exchange there. Companies are flocking there. And the homestead exemption started all of this, but they just keep doing better and they're relying less and less on federal intervention. Go ahead, Tom.
I'm going to say, as a Floridian, I just want
Hmm.
to add a little bit of nuance to this. It isn't the Florida GOP; it's Ron
I didn't
DeSantis.
say it was them. I
Yeah,
know.
Yeah.
it's Ron
Yeah.
DeSantis, in spite of the Florida GOP. The Florida
The only thing the
GOP
Florida
is
GOP has done is made sure he could get reelected.
Yeah, and remember, but that's only because DeSantis rode herd over them. And this is in a state where the governor is actually legislatively weak, where the
Hmm.
legislature has so much
Well,
more power, and he's actually been able to ride herd over them in a way that has been incredibly impressive. We
so
actually don't want him to leave office and be term limited out in any way, manner, shape, or form because the um because he's so good at this. And you're watching the Florida GOP try to sabotage property tax
yeah,
exemption. They're trying to
yeah,
give us
yeah.
that moron Byron Donalds as the
Yeah.
as his replacement. We have like this. There's a lot of
So
bad shit. So over the horizon in Florida, Davos is working, and through the Florida GOP working really fucking hard to undo that as well. And
Hmm.
we have to be, aware of this, and we have to have somebody that comes in and challenges Donalds and the GOP before DeSantis is gone. And I don't know that that's going to happen. So
so
You know what
this
would
is
be
where we are.
awesome if you know who it was?
What?
One of the Trumps.
Yeah, it would be. Right. Exactly.
so
And, you know,
Tom, if I can pause there a moment,
sure.
right? It's not DeSantis. He's one man and he's not, a total dictator. It's the
Right.
wealthy elite, or at least enough of the factions of the wealthy elite there that
Yeah.
have his back.
Yeah. The donor
And
class.
so I want to go to something that most Americans don't think about. but they need to. The United States was not set up like Rome. The United States was set up like the British, the way the English manorial system was initially set up, the
Hmm.
nobility, right? Each
Mhm.
state was a different ducal princedom. Each
Hmm.
state had its ability to innovate, had its ability to have its unique natures, and each state was supposed to be able to work out all of these complex things internally and to compete with one another. It's
Mhm.
set now. The difference is that instead of having a hereditary prince, you on the public face, instead of having a hereditary prince, you have an elected
Mhm.
official, right? But it's really set up. The United States is really set up as the English manorial system, as was codified in 1689, 1690. I don't remember, et cetera. Right? 1701 and 1704 is the last two acts. But the point being is this: is that when it comes to power, the Democrats, the Republicans and the libs or whatever the hell these labels are, they have no real power. The only power they have is over manipulation, machinations, these types of things. The only real power isn't also in the elected positions, unless the people in the state that have real power, like in Tennessee, there it's a small handful, right?
Mhm.
If those people have the elected officials back and some of the judges and some of the district attorneys and the apparatchiks, if they have their back, then that state is stable, internally stable, power
Mhm.
wise, and then you can have figures like DeSantis.
Yeah,
You
and
can not
yeah.
have to bow to the GOP's fuckery or whatever, et cetera.
Mhm.
But that's why the British system, which is this, Whigs versus Tories bullshit, riddled throughout everything. And we need to stop looking to them. They are the problem, not the
Yeah,
solution. The
yeah.
wealthy families are the solution. And they're getting the problem that, again, back to the British system, the financialist system, most of those wealthy families' wealth is no longer in the land and the resources and the productivity of the land they live on. It's in BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard, and the
It's in
markets.
money
And
making money on money.
it's in money. That's right. It's in portfolios, right? And so
So
how do
the
we, yeah, go ahead.
so for
Yeah,
looking when thinking ahead about Florida, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
As a thing, then what you have to realize is that the the power in the long rectangle of Broward, Miami-Dade, and West Palm, or West
Hmm. Yeah, yeah,
Miami-Dade,
yeah, yeah.
Broward, West Palm going
Yeah, yeah.
north, have fundamentally shifted, and they've shifted into a different because they allowed because we the shift, quote unquote, right from a purple state to a red state never really happened in Florida. What happened was we got fair elections
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and we
Yeah.
actually got real data as opposed to fake data.
Correct.
Okay.
California would be the same, by the way.
California would likely be the same.
Yeah,
New York would be New York would
yeah,
absolutely be the fucking same.
yeah,
So would probably New Jersey and a few other
yeah,
states. I mean,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so this is the thing. Who the hell knows what at this point, like there's a lot of these places. So this is why the shutdown. So it was interesting. Like the shutdown is going to end here, or at least start to end. And you realize that like COVID, this shutdown was hitting on like 5 or 6 different vectors all at once, right? It
Hmm.
was slow down the IPO of Fannie and Freddie. And then, of course, by definition, then bank and credit application reform that was necessary in order to start getting credit into the hands of
Hmm.
the lower and middle classes so that they can free up the cash flow to actually start the American rebuild of the American dream through infrastructure jobs, right? That's one. The other one is, of course, stopping the Clarity Act, which would then give the Treasury more power over the currency than by taking it away from the Federal Reserve. I know
Yeah.
you, EM, you and I disagree on where the long term thing for crypto is, but in the end, that's what the Clarity Act is for. Genius and Clarity together are to create a modern digital version of greenbacks, okay, which is Treasury money, not central bank money. And then the second, and then that's one vector. Then there's the next vector, which is can we slow down? Can they slow down and the reforming of Obamacare and pharma and Maha and all of this stuff? So you start going through all of it, and you're like, Oh, yeah, they had to do this. And of course, voter ID, national voter ID, national
Paper
standards for elections,
ballots. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
all
Yeah.
of this shit. And not that I want to have national control over the elections. I would like the states to act like Florida. Fix your fucking voting system. Okay. And everybody who doesn't want to live in a state with unfair elections moves.
Yeah,
Right.
you're
But
gonna
we
you're
all
gonna have
know
to
that
deal with the
that's
cart. You're gonna
but
have to
then
deal
we
with the
have to fix
cartels.
but then we
Yeah.
have to also fix the statistics system, which counts the illegals as part of the fucking census. The 2020 census needs to be removed and redone yesterday,
Yeah.
which Trump will do if he can get it through. But he's got a bunch of fucking Jacobins in both parties. And unfortunately, our system does not allow for Trump to be a king.
I've got a
Hmm.
question for both you gentlemen,
So,
right? Um, which just jumped out the other side of my head here.
mm,
So the Jacobins, the amendments. There are amendments that we're going to have to make, and they're going to have to get through. We are going to have to fix the gaps in the 14th Amendment around apportionment that you just touched on, Tom. We're
mhm.
going to have to fix some gaps in the
That's not
19th
true.
Amendment.
The 14th
Halsey,
Amendment doesn't have to be fixed. It's a law that was written. The Voting Rights Act is what the 14th Amendment is implemented
hold
through.
on a second. Hold
That
on,
can be
Halsey.
changed.
What is apportionment? Apportionment does not clearly distinct native-born Americans, non-anchor babies, etc. So the
Hmm.
the language of the so there are amendments that we are going to have to revisit. So we're going to have to do some additional amendments that fix gaps in the Constitution. That's to be expected. Nothing's perfect. The enemy
But
always figures out gaps and holes, right?
Well,
And
I'll
that's
say
going to
well,
happen
well, I'll
at
say to
states
this to you,
levels
you're
too.
both correct. The short
Yeah.
term, you fix the Voting Rights Act. The long term fix is to
Correct.
clarify apportionment.
Constitutional. Yeah, yeah, I agree
Right.
with that. Yeah, yeah, no, I totally agree with that. The other thing that we need to take into account, like Arizona has been going the way it's been going because the cartels in New Mexico as well, West Texas, Southern California, et cetera, those votes are going the way they're going. We can clean all this other stuff up. They'll still go the way they're going because they own and most of Nevada because the cartels threaten the judges. The cartels threaten the elected officials. They threaten so we're going to have to deal with this organized transnational fourth generation criminal gang issue, or we're still going to have problems with elections everywhere.
Yeah, no, I agreed. Nothing is going to be an easy fix.
Straight
Like
line,
that's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Nothing is going to be an easy fix, but you fix what you can, and then because like we're so on a knife edge right now because of the way the electoral system is so freaking corrupt that what should have been a 40-seat majority in the House and a 9-seat majority
Yes, yes,
in the Senate after Trump won is a 3-seat in the Senate and 2-seat or 3-seat in the House.
yes.
They did that on purpose. They realized immediately that we knew exactly what they were doing. I could see it on election night for fuck's sake.
Uh,
They made Trump the president and then they stole a bunch of
well,
fucking House
and
and
not
Senate
just
seats.
at the federal level. Look at all the states levels,
Sure.
city levels, county
Yeah,
levels,
yeah,
all over the
same thing.
country. Yeah,
Agreed.
yeah.
Agreed. So now if you can fix even in this situation alone, if you fix 3 states, you have a durable political advantage that you can work off of. I gotta go.
Hmm.
I'm gonna go put myself on mute for a minute. I'm
Yep.
gonna go take the dog outside and hang the dog. He's like,
Dying.
But there's been a lot of interesting things that if you pay attention to Florida and Texas, what's going on, you can learn a lot as to just how smart their leaders are. And for me, it's because I study the Middle
Texas
East.
is
So
losing. Texas is
Texas is getting
losing.
killed.
Yeah.
Texas is the wrong way to do it. Florida is the right way to do it. That's why
Mm.
you can look at both and figure out which is doing the right thing. Because I do so much work on Israel and the Middle East and all of that, there's a lot of times I just look at something and I go, there's something more to this, right? Do you remember when DeSantis went to Israel and he made that big announcement there was going to be like some speech bill that wasn't really a thing, but they made it a thing? I was wondering what the hell was he doing there in the first place, right? So I looked into it and he was strengthening what was called the Florida Business Innovation Agreement, right? He's brought over $1 billion in Israeli tech to Florida that are now focused on Florida. It's brought in a massive amount of taxes and it's brought in a massive amount of investment. As I said, it's over $1 billion just in the last year that's been brought into these
Well,
Israeli companies that are now located in Florida. And he's doing the same with India. He's
every
bringing in a lot of
U.S.
Indians.
every U.S. state has partnerships with foreign countries for innovation and
Hmm.
economics. Every National Guard, state level National Guard has relationships with foreign militaries and
Hmm.
there's these partnership agreements and it's necessary, based off of what we're doing. I mean, that's all regulated at the higher level by federal and, all those types of things. But, these the United States of America was set up as the English manorial system with elections,
Hmm.
without hereditary power in the top, in the executive positions. That's elected power, not hereditary power. Um, Ducal systems have had connections and relationships across all kinds of vectors with foreign countries from the beginning of time. It's all
Hmm.
necessary. The thing that I have the greatest concern with, gentlemen, and Tom, this is more your area, where I have the greatest concern, because I've watched it my own life in and out of Idaho here, and certainly out of the Bay Area in California, San Francisco, actually. Um, the vast majority of wealth that I've seen created in the last 40 years is all artificial. It's all money on money, and it's fake money. It's not even money on real money. It's money on what I call unearned liquidity, right?
Mhm.
It's not revenue-based, productivity-based liquidity. It's
No.
this whole artificial liquidity. And so the I have watched elites and states, and this has happened on purpose, right? I've watched it go from landed resource productive based wealth as the wealthiest people in the state to this money on money people.
Mhm.
And I saw it here
Hmm.
in Idaho first in Sun Valley back 30 years ago when I lived there, and private equity guys were moving there because it's an
Hmm.
extraordinary place to live. These guys provided nothing to the state. And then they start buying up, all kinds of things with their fake money, et cetera. So what I'm concerned with, Florida's not my thing. Idaho, California are my thing. Somewhat Washington, Oregon. My family built the Oregon country, right up into British Columbia and Alberta, et cetera. Um, what I am concerned with is I'm not seeing these wealthy elite people realize how close they are to revolutions in their own states.
Mhm.
I don't see him realizing the two socialist camps, the Groypers and the
Mhm.
Marxists, whatever, arguments. And I'm watching here play out in Idaho, even in rural Idaho. And the local elites are not paying attention. Why? Because their wealth, the vast majority of their wealth, is money on money. It's
Hmm.
fake, right? And it's horrible here in Idaho. We have an immense amount of natural resources. We have one of the, and Tom, you're the one that first mentioned this a couple of years ago. We have one of the largest oil and natural gas untapped fields in the entire CONUS. We
Mhm.
have, we could, like Norway, why is Norway so wealthy? Because 98% of Norway's power generation is all hydro. We have
Hmm.
the same geology here, and until just the last few years, we provide all of our own power. And
Right.
then they made us dependent on other things. So I am very concerned that all the right things that can be done are being done at the federal level, and some right things are being done maybe in some states, but
Mhm.
I'm not seeing it in the rest of the country. And so I just am watching, I'm watching the younger generations, I'm watching, our generation, the millennials in between, and I just, because of the wealthy elite specifically and where their wealth is now, it's not in their own state, it's not in their own land. And when I talk to them and I get them to a place where they admit that, oh, there's something really bad, they're like, but I'll just get on my jet and I'll go to my other place or I'll leave the country or whatever.
Hmm.
Right. And it seems like we're still inexorably walking towards a revolution.
I'll
No,
answer
no,
that if Tom doesn't want to, but yeah.
what's that? I'm sorry.
I said I want to answer after you do.
I wanted you to go first because I want to hear what you have
So
to say about that.
what he's saying is a real issue because when you talk about the industrial wealth that existed in the past, it existed in real assets,
Yes.
Mhm.
right?
And
And if
productivity.
you
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
and in the end of the day, and this is just a sad reality, when you have assets, you can't fuck with the government enough because if you do, they'll fuck with you back, and you'll start losing like they'll break up your companies. They'll take your assets and turn them into eminent domain. You name it, they'll regulate you right out of existence.
Mhm.
Right? You can't screw with City Hall. The private equity guys, the guys that are buying up and making all these billions of dollars on paper, have nothing. They don't even have actualized wealth. right? All their wealth is on
Everything's
paper.
stolen. It's all stolen.
Right.
Just straight up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's all been made through weird derivatives and PE investments and all kinds of fucked up financial system instruments that enable them to be ghosts. Okay, because if they ever screw with the wrong person and that person comes back at them, like you said, they're on a jet, they're in another state in 5 minutes. It was this as if they were never there,
Yep.
right? So the problem is that, and I don't know, I personally don't know if we can stop this, just so you know. I'm not suggesting that I have a solution.
Oh, we
The
can.
problem is that every time the market gets propped up on these weird derivative investment instruments,
Mhm.
right? And then it crashes everything and we go, holy shit, we can never let that happen again. They just figure out how to do it in a different way. I'm not sure we can stop that. And
We can. Tom, I want to hear what you have to say, but if I might throw one thing in there, there is a
Yeah.
solution. It's called the Sherman Act. And you go after these massive private equity funds and these investment firms with antitrust. The laws are on the book. Now we might need to update
I'm
some
not sure
things
how
and
you can
dust it
do that
off.
though.
You go after them for antitrust. You go after them for dominating entire industries.
Or you go,
98% of the
or
markets are controlled by three companies, which one of those companies is owned by the other two,
Yep.
right? So
I,
Tom, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I mean, it's probably a stretch to be able to do that. Um, all three of those companies that you talk about are also that you're talking about here are also balance sheet leveraged in ways now that they've exposed themselves to northeastern real estate, residential real estate at levels that that I've been predicting BlackRock was going to go down on their small balance sheet versus their BlackRock is a tail that wags the tail. BlackRock is the flea that forces the tail on the dog to wag. Okay,
mhm.
that's what BlackRock is. It's a $55 billion company in terms of shareholder equity, maybe 60 billion. I haven't looked at their latest quarterly report.
Yeah.
Um, that controls $9 trillion worth of assets and puts their guys on the boards of all these companies because they're voting our proxy. Same thing with State Street, same thing with Vanguard, and all the same this shit all over and over again. And Larry Fink is, of course, the Jew you're supposed to hate,
Mm-hmm.
right? And and while we don't know who, does anybody know who the CEO of State Street and Vanguard are? I don't, but we all know Larry Fink's name
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's the hired help.
because he's upper management.
He's
Because
hired help, yeah.
he's the
He's
front.
sitting at the table. He doesn't own the
Right.
table, but he sits
Right.
at
He
the
doesn't. Oh,
table.
no. He's just
Yeah,
upper.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
He's been promoted from middle management to upper management. And he thinks
Yeah.
he runs everything. Um, when the real upper management is now looking at, I've been saying this for years. They're going to look at him and go, okay, Larry's getting a little too big for his britches. We need to knock him down. How do we do it? Well, we have our boy at the Fed, Powell, doing exactly what we need him to do, which is to drain the world of dollar liquidity. One of the counter effects of the shutdown was that Bessent was adding all of this money into the Treasury General account. He's got over $1 trillion in the TGA right now, and that money wasn't flowing out through the normal
Yeah. The
pathways out
sieve.
through into
Yeah.
the system. So that's what caused, SOFR to blow out over IORB the other day. Everybody was like, oh my God, there's a repo crisis and blah, blah, blah. No, it's because there's no fucking money flowing through the system. But guess who's getting fucked by that worse? It was $30 billion in our system. There's $130 billion in the British
system.
Bank of England's banking system. Okay.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've been thinking about recently, this is where we have to start really putting our strategy hats on. And especially when I watched Scott Bessent on PMSNBC tear them down over asking him about the $20 billion bailout to Argentina. And he's like, I'm sorry, do you know what a currency swap is?
Yeah.
You know what a swap line is? And he's like, dude, that's not a bailout. Like, we made money on this. We're like, it's a repo, or we're getting paid to provide them dollars while the Bank of England was attacking our ally. Okay, that was the subtext. You get to see it on his face. He's like, we made money on this. What are you talking about? This is money I don't have to raise in the debt markets now. So shut the fuck up and stop sucking limey cock. Like that's what we need to. That's what needs to happen here. You can't say that, but it would be hilarious if Besson actually did say it, since he's gay. All right, but that being said, let's get back on point. What's really on point is that if you look at what happened, let's go back to the tariff tantrum earlier in the year, right? So the Bank of England, the Bank of Canada ran a massive operation attacking the SOFR markets during the days up to and through the end of synthetic LIBOR on March 31st, and then Trump's tariff announcement on April 2nd. During all of that, we heard nothing but, oh my God, the basis trade is blowing up. Oh my God, the basis trade is blowing up, which is people, that's the trade where you play the game of the difference between spot and treasury futures, and you pick up nickels in front of the freight train, and the way you make money at it is massive amount of leverage, right? And that's the basis trade. Not a big deal. Everybody does it. Everybody does it everywhere. They do it in the Caymans. They do it all over the fucking world. But it was then thrown out there as slop for the zero hedge set to pick up, when the reality was that they were attacking the SOFR futures markets. And I figured that out only because, well, I chart the SOFR futures markets twice a week for my patrons. So I can try and figure out where the market thinks the Fed funds rate, the cost of money, is going to be in the future. And I'm like watching that. Now, here's a couple of things I want you to know. That attack was massive, and it cost hundreds of billions, if not trillions of actual fake dollars, right? Like the amount of leverage it took to attack the SOFR futures market, what the guys who trade SOFR call the SOFR strip. Everything from 6 months to 3 years out, which is, by the way, what I didn't realize this. That's actually what I chart all the time. I have 3 years worth of I just chart 3 years worth of SOFR futures data. Now, the interesting part about that's not the interesting part. Well, it is interesting because it failed spectacularly.
Yeah.
Okay. It was a week's worth of, oh my God. And then Trump backed off on the tariffs at the same time as once he backed off on the tariffs, so the whole thing was over. So played the game. The thing fails. Trump can then back off on the tariffs a little bit. We absorb the shock. We absorb the hit to the face. Because what was happening at the same time? Besant was running a gold draining operation on the LBMA. There was a massive run on copper on copper futures in July. Copper hit a high of $5.95 a fucking pound. If you look at the July monthly bar, I was just doing it this morning for my weekly podcast for Newsmax. I forgot that this bar was this retarded. Copper traded in a 30-day period from $4.30 a pound to $5.95 a pound. Okay, in one fucking month, and in the process, ended down.
Yeah, because it broke the dependencies.
Because London had to stop that from blowing up, or the LME would have fucking went bankrupt in July.
Yeah, and it broke dependencies.
What I'm getting at here is that what would have been oh my God, we had to paper over an attack in March, April, would then turn up as a normal 6 month later. Nothing's fixed, nothing's changed, and by October we're going to have another an aftershock 6 months later. SOFR crisis of 2019, COVID shock of March 2020, repo shock of September 2007, Bear Stearns vaporization March 2008. These things happen whenever the Fed has to come in and try and stabilize the markets, meaning the Fed was always playing defense.
Yes,
because it didn't have a treasury
reactionary defense.
And now we have a treasury going on offense when the Fed is playing defense. And that's why Andrew Bailey, I think there's going to be a credit crisis in the United States really soon now because of X, Y, and Z. And that was the other thing that the shutdown was supposed to create. Because once you start drying up the liquidity in the repo markets domestically, then they can then turn around and start pounding the fucking markets exactly the same way they tried to before. And Besant's out there going, you know what? Fuck you. Why don't you defend the fucking LBMA in the silver market?
Yes.
By the way, and that's what was going on. And oh, by the way, so are the Chinese. They're giving them a fucking hand because the Chinese and the Americans are literally taking London and going, you know what? Pull.
And nobody understands the silver market better than the Chinese. And despite going off the silver standard, right, the pound sterling, the whole British system is designed and built around what? Not gold, silver. And that means
there's also something I meant.
The whole Commonwealth system as well is based around silver. Right?
So, but just understand that's why we're in the game today.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my God. I can't believe you're not mentioning it.
What's
I
that?
just said this to Tommy on Monday. I said that I don't know if this is a good thing or not,
Right.
but there is a way. As of right now, if things goes the way they're going, Trump loses the House and Senate in a year. Right?
Hmm.
It's where the trends are going. It's where the polls are going, and the
It's
economic
all
situation
bullshit.
is not getting much
Yeah.
better. And what I said to Tommy just last week, I said, unless, now, as I said, not saying this is a good thing per se, but if Trump takes all of that money that he raised through the tariffs and just says, I'm going to pump it back to you, I'm going to give you a rebate check, which is funny because he announced it literally 2 days later
Right.
that that's what he's going for, which is, by the way, why he wants to kill the filibuster. He knows the Democrats will fight this with everything they got.
Hmm.
Okay, because remember how COVID spending went out of control? You couldn't find a fucking couch or a car anywhere because everybody was buying up anything that wasn't nailed down. The stock market was flying, the crypto market was out of control, right? Because we injected all those stimmy checks into the marketplace. We can't inject those stimmy checks now if we have the government print the money. We can if we take all of that money that has not been passed on to the consumer yet by the companies that are going to have to pay it, the Amazons and all of that. What are
Hmm.
they doing? They're not preparing to raise prices. They're cutting staff. If you look at all the biggest companies,
Yeah, in
and
large numbers.
they're cutting dead weight, middle management.
Hmm.
They're getting ready for this because the consumer spending will go absolutely bonkers if he gives $2,000 per person to everybody in America from this tariff money. And then the companies who have to make that money back. So they'll raise prices a little bit. But if they've already cut enough staff that it's not going to be a massive hit, people won't notice it.
So Halsey, I have a little bit, I agree with some of the mechanics. I am listening to people and they are in a world of hurt
Oh,
with
yeah.
credit cards and debt. And my suspicion is that we're not going to get a consumption boom in this. We're going to get a credit pay down boom in this.
It'll be just as good.
Yeah,
Um,
actually, that's actually what people did mostly with their stimulus
Correct.
checks the first
Correct.
time,
Yeah, it's like
and it
70,
won't come as. And
80%.
here's the other
Yeah.
thing: it won't come in the form of checks, guys. It'll come as in the form. It'll just be a tax credit,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
and that's the best way
Yeah.
to do it. It's the cheapest way to do it. Stimmy checks are dumb. Only
Yeah.
Democrats would actually send checks out because they're thinking in terms of
Because they
politics.
buy
We really
slaves.
want.
They
Like
buy
Yeah.
slaves.
most people get a small $500-$600 rebate
Yeah.
at the end of the year anyway. Now we just make it a $4,500 rebate for a married couple, done, and they can turn around and then for 1 month, the average family in America has their literally all of their expenses covered by
Yes.
that.
But
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
just said was so important, Em. I'm
Yeah.
just pointing it out
Yeah.
because the people that'll pay down the credit are the people that need to pay down the credit. That's the
Correct.
middle class and the
Correct.
upper middle class. The
No,
poor
it's
are not in a debt crunch. And even if they were, they spend irresponsibly in the first place.
Right.
They're the ones that are going to go out and buy the stupid gold chains and the new cars
yeah. Well,
and
and
start investing into crypto and all of that shit.
they're already drawing that money up anyways with the EBT and all this Snap and all this other kind of stuff. So,
Yep.
um, you know, one of the things that, and Tom, this is more your big brain stuff in the area, but the fundamental problem that we got into really taking off in the 1970s was we transitioned to an almost purely consumer economy
Oh yeah.
and
68%.
steadily, and then private equity came in and put the deindustrialization on jet fuel and burned
Mhm.
everything down while feeding the consumer economy. And this is another thing, like we got to get away from home building and real estate
Well, that's
development
again,
as the
and
base.
that's the
We got to get away.
turbocharging. Yeah,
We
no,
got to get away from
EM, what you're talking
consumer
about is that
economy.
that's the turbocharging of the Eurodollar system with
Yes.
LIBOR and all of
And now
that.
Yeah.
EM's
And
going to
that's
make me
gone.
stand up for private equity,
And
which
that
I hate.
structure's and that
I hate
structure's
private
gone.
equity. Yeah.
Yeah.
So do I, but you're going to make me stand up for them right now. A
Well,
big thing that private equity done, and we look at it as an evil thing, but only people that don't truly understand economics understand this. Don't understand this. When a private equity company comes in and they buy what seems to be a profitable company, and then they rip it up, they sell it off piece by piece, they take their profit, they move on. You say, "Oh my God, they're vultures." Most of those companies were not going to make it 10 years. Okay, they didn't have the customer base. They had a decent amount of debt, and they didn't have the worker base to fulfill what they needed to fulfill, and were going to
yeah.
become global in the
I'm
first
gonna
place.
disagree. I was in
We
private
can
equity,
disagree.
Halsey.
I'm
I'm
just
gonna
saying
totally disagree with you.
that's fine. You can.
I had to
Hey,
go away
I
to
don't
war
speak.
to hunt
As
human
always,
beings
it's
because I felt,
probably a little bit of both for
well, okay,
folks.
so private
But
equity, when
but
it's
like the
done
Joanne
right,
Fabrics of the world, they were not companies that were going to be gone in 10 years. They were
Yes.
companies that were sitting on large real estate positions that they would have to downsize, but it was never, but the companies themselves were not going to
I've
go
had
anywhere.
several of my very good friends, very high net worth friends, taken down by private equity and all kinds of fuckery. And
I
they had
agree. I
good,
hate private
solid
equity. I'm not. Don't
family
get offended at what
generational.
I'm saying.
So hold on a
I
second. I'm not
hate them.
offended. It takes a lot to offend me. What we have to understand is that we had the model for the world in a movie. It was called Wall Street.
I
And
remember
what was
that.
that about? Gordon Gekko, right? Taking down an airline company. Why? Because they had cash reserves in their pension funds.
Hmm.
And greed is good, right? So, point being is that two things we're going to have to. Now, private equity is one thing we're going to have to go after. Private equity, we're going to have to go hard after that because that is the fake money. That is the British system writ large, right? That's piracy, legalized piracy. So we're going to have to move away from home building as the manufacturing we do and the revenue base for cities. We're also going to have to, as a people, move away from being a consumer-based economy
Agreed.
or a purely consumer-based economy. And that
I
means we're going
agree
to
with
have,
you. I just don't know how we do it.
well, that's okay. And I don't have the answer either, but the consumer-based economy, very much to what Tom's saying, is what feeds the Eurodollar system. It's what feeds the, it's what, if you don't produce 50, 60, 70% of what you use and need, then you're siphoning off, how much, okay, let me put it this way.
I know how we get there, guys. I can give you the answer.
Okay,
It's
we'll
really
give you the
simple.
answer.
Ready?
Yeah.
It goes harkens right back to a conversation that I had with Alex Craner about 6 weeks ago, maybe 2 months ago. It's about building quality, not quantity.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
about saying, as opposed to saying, and this gets back to property tax and everything else. Let me give you a perfect example. As of right now, in my little Shangri-La piece of heaven up here in central Tennessee, my property taxes this year are going to be the princely sum of $171. Okay. Now, that's going to change once I get reassessed after all the building is done and everything else. And that's fine. I don't care. Happy to, then I get to yell at my county and say, okay, fuck you, pay my road. Right. But because I'll be literally the tax base of the county. But I kid, but not that I'm not that far off. The point is that as I go to build this property out, if I don't have property taxes like we're talking about in Florida, I'm now not choosing the cheapest way to build my house.
Right. Correct.
Now I'm thinking in terms of, well, maybe, just maybe, I am going to put brick fascia on the outside, or I am going to put that brick stoop on the thing, or I am going to build a house that's going to last not 50 years with a 50-year mortgage against it, but 100 years or 200 years or 300 years. I'm going to build something beautiful, not something convenient.
And
23 years ago, I went crazy and I went into the Florida heat and I built a house, and I built the best house that I could with the amount of money I had, which was almost nothing. Okay. We built but it wasn't pretty. It still isn't pretty.
So property values,
but it was ours. Now, if I didn't have property tax, if I didn't have 65 or 70% of my fucking income going to a pay-as-you-go death tax called Social Security, fucking retarded goddamn Obamacare premiums, Medicare, income tax, state income tax, county tax, the
sales
fuck
tax,
all these people. If I'm not paying 70% of my fucking income to these people, I'm building a stone house. Okay.
So
with granite countertops and hardwood floors, and not a stick frame house.
It used to be that properties appreciated in value because there was value in them across centuries, across generations and centuries. Now all the property value increase is trash. Meanwhile, the house is physically depreciating.
Yes.
To nothing.
Now we're building. It's no different
20-year houses.
We turned housing into the car market.
Correct.
And this is the only flaw with Trump's plan of a 50-year mortgage
that I don't like.
is that I know I do. I actually understand exactly why he's doing it at all. And again, it all depends on term. And we'll have that conversation in a minute. Because
right now we're already, if you do 30 years,
gets access to that money.
Yeah, but hold on a second. You buy a house for $500,000 and you do a 30-year mortgage. How much are you paying for that house over that full 30 years? Three
you're going to
times.
pay, depending on it all depends on the interest rate. If
It,
it's
of course, it
3%,
depends
it's
on.
It
less than
doesn't
double.
matter. It doesn't matter.
No.
It really
So
doesn't matter. Everybody who takes a mortgage is basically taking a 50-year mortgage already. Because you know why? As soon as your kids are ready for college, you're taking another mortgage on your house. As soon as you hit some kind of problem, you're taking a mortgage on your house. I'm telling you, that's been the thing
it's
all
an
the whole
interesting
time.
point. That's an
The only
interesting point.
difference is that you signed a 30-year right up front and you just kept taking seconds and third mortgages, which you couldn't predict the interest rate when you would need it. Whereas
Right.
now you know the interest rate going forward, and if you want to take a HELOC, you can take it at any time over that 50 years, or you can just refinance it straight up and take it over that 50 years. And now you don't have to worry as much anymore because your original mortgage is still with the original company. You're paying less per month on the original, and you know the interest rate going out for 50 years. So anything you tack onto it is not tacking on uncertainty.
This here's another angle on another very well said, Halsey, by the way. More and another piece of this puzzle is that I also think, and this is now speculation on my part, but given the way Trump is structuring all this, and given about what he's thinking about in terms of Fannie and Freddie, the IPO, this, that, and everything else, he's going to subsidize those mortgages. How are you going to get private equity to put skin in the game? He is going to offer these mortgages at sub-market rate only to certain types of home buyers, meaning young people in a new home, first-time home buyers, this kind of thing. And it's going to be at a subsidized rate, and he's going to jack their fucking taxes up on everybody else. He's going to make them pay a higher cost of carry on the capital so that the young people are paying 3% on the note. And if private equity wants to get into the real estate game, they're going to have to pay 5%. And guess what? And if they grow the value of the property through rent and everything else, fine, great. Then you're going to pay you're paying a higher tax rate because you're paying corporate income tax plus everything else. And that's going to be a wealth transfer from them back to the lower middle classes. That can be
You
structured.
also do, you don't, I don't think you have experience with this, but I assume that EM does. I do as well. There's also another aspect of this. A
Okay.
lot of the mortgages that originate every year, whether it be through Fannie and Freddie, whether it be through USDA, come from the VA. Veterans
Mm.
mortgages is a
Oh,
huge industry.
oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And that boosts recruitment, which is one of the things he's been trying to do the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because and you'll start
Mm.
seeing the ads soon about join the army and you can get a house for a point below
And
prime.
then
And
and then what happens is the government does the subsidizing. They'll do the tax thing for the private equity and those guys, but they'll
Right.
do
And
so this.
and
Mhm.
and everybody wins if it's a Fannie, Freddie, or Ginnie Mae loan because they're going to pay that $50 or $60 a month insurance premium, which is going to go right into their coffers, which will then set up the mortgage-backed security market. Fannie and Freddie, when they go fucking public, this is another thing that no one is talking about. But I've talked about it with a couple of friends of mine behind the scenes, and we've tried to figure out how we can get Fannie and Freddie from making $30 billion a year net profit to $75 billion a year. You want to know how they do it? It's the simplest thing in the world. Who is the market maker? Who runs the exchange on mortgage-backed securities? Fannie and Freddie. Do you know what their listing fee is
Mm.
for listing your mortgage-backed security on their exchange? Zero. Do the
Mm.
math. Look at the volume. They charge 10 fucking basis points and they go from $30 billion a year to 70. Guess what happens then? Fannie and Freddie are now no longer a 500 or $600 billion company when they hit the table. They're now a $3 trillion company paying a 5% dividend. Guess who owns now? Guess who Trump can sell all that 80% stock common stock to? The fucking life insurance companies and
Yeah, the
the entire
institutions.
insurance
Yep.
and mortgage reinsurance industry. Guess what? That's further literal points off of your fucking mortgage because the friggin' part of that fucking payment's coming back to you as a goddamn dividend.
Okay.
you know what
So
else you're forgetting
That's
too? And
that's the
again,
only
I didn't get to
brilliant
fit.
thing that fucking FDR did.
There's another thing that yeah, I didn't you cut me off a little bit.
I'm
The
sorry.
one thing that the USDA, some of the FHA, and all of the veterans loans have in common: no PMI, no down payment.
no down payment, fixed
So
rate, and a fixed rate.
And another thing is
Yeah.
also
you
a
only
lot
have
of
a
the FHA.
$5,000 fee, which goes back to the program itself so that they can keep subsidizing the program.
Yeah.
So
And
that's big for kids. For young kids
and
coming out of college or to join the army, they get college paid for, no student debt, and they get a VA mortgage
Okay.
with zero down
So
payments, no
that's
PMI.
guys, I got to jump off here,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I got
no,
one
that's
last
fine.
question. I got
Sure.
one last big question for you guys, okay? The other one that we have out there is the $2 trillion in student loans that's just destroying people. And
Oh,
how do we structure?
I think they should all be forgiven.
Well,
Whoa,
I don't know if it's forgiven.
whoa!
I think, well,
I thought I was going to have to be the shithead that said it.
I
No,
don't
I've
know
been
that
saying
it's,
it for
Tom.
20 years. Dude, I've been saying this is longer than you and I've known each other. If
So
you
here's-
pay back more than the
I
fucking
thought I was going to have to
fuck
get
off,
everybody
those
hating
things should
on
be
me for
discharged.
saying
well,
it.
here's my thought on that. I don't know that we do. One, I don't think politically we could do it. I don't
We
think
have to.
we excuse it. I think what we do is we do something like Kennedy's civil service, Peace
We
Corps
can't.
thing or something here in the United States. And you do it because if you're a 100% disabled veteran, you'll get your student loans excused. Now, here's what the VA is doing to fuck with you. The VA won't give you 100% unless you claim PTSD, and then you get red flag laws
No,
and all
that's
this
not
other
true.
kinds of.
That's not true. I'm telling you, I have a loan, and it's not true. My father doesn't. My father owns my house. He doesn't have PTSD. He was never injured in the
Hang
line.
on a
None of it.
second. I'm talking about getting 100% rating. Have you ever served in the military? Do you have a disability rating from the VA? Because that's what I'm talking about, Halsey.
I understand that. My
Okay.
father served. So.
I'm telling you that and I just went through this coming out of special operations. They won't give you 100% unless you claim PTSD, because then in most states, they can hit you with red flag laws and take your weapons from you. The VA also won't do it because of political bullshit, because 100% disabled veterans get their student loans excused. So what are
Yes.
they doing? They're making sure guys get 90% disability and not 100%, so that they still get that big nut, $2 trillion getting paid for every fucking month. The point being, though, is that we use the VA model where guys and gals that did service can get their student loans excused. We got a lot of civil servants. Holy cow, just start cleaning up the fucking cities and the countryside. That's a civil service. Right? Put time and energy.
Your point is absolutely well taken, and I'm going to say it's a great start. I'm going to add to this. Our biggest problem we have right now is not the kids who graduated college today with student loan debt. It's the 40-year-olds. It's the 45-year-olds.
The millennials and younger Xers.
Right, who are middle income trapped, okay, because and fucked on the inflation, and they're saddled with student loan debt they can't pay back. And they paid it back.
Yeah, they paid it many times.
I'm telling you, though, I know how they can do it.
They're paying student loans that are the amount of money they should have been paying into a mortgage and building equity.
I agree.
Yep. But there is a way they can do it. There's a way they can do it without having to just forgive it. They do a 50% tax lien. So that what happens is that whenever you get a tax return, 50% of it goes to pay your student loans. If you don't get a tax return, then nothing goes to your student loans, and they're just forgiven.
That's not even, sorry, man. That's not even close. My student loans are $1,000 a month.
I'm not saying it ever gets paid off. I'm saying it just gets
I would do civil service. We need civil service anyways, because we need recommitment to the country. This gets us away from the Groypers. It gets us away from the Marxists, gets us back to a recommitment to our civilization, our country, our people. And you use that as a way through certain amount of time and effort, et cetera. You excuse the student loans. I'm terribly sorry, guys.
Creates government bureaucracy. It creates huge.
We already have all the bureaucracy. We already have it.
We can argue about the implementation, but the basic understanding is that at the very least these need to be written down to a certain degree.
That's right. It needs to go away.
Yes.
Terribly sorry, guys.
About specifics
I got to jump.
Yeah, man. It's been awesome.
Take care, man.
guys.
Happy Veterans Day.
You as well. Bye-bye.
All right, guys. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up. Yeah, my fucking camera shuts off.
Well, the last thing I wanted to say, Tommy, before we pop off, is that there's another angle on the whole getting kids into homes thing, which is that FHA mortgages are assumable.
Mm-hmm.
And that when you get rid of all these H-1Bs and all these illegals who the Biden junta gave out, all of those mortgages, if they're starter homes and they're in that $175,000 to $200,000 range, they can all be assumed. And I'm telling you, a young couple, like $3 over minimum wage, can afford that house.
Yep, that's what I did. That's what I did.
Yeah, that's what I did. That was my first. My first mortgage was an assumed, it was an assumable FHA mortgage. It had a balance of $49,000, $49,320 and change. I actually remember that number. I think it was $49,320.68 was the balance. My My first mortgage payment was $432 and change. I think it was $432.15. And I was the primary breadwinner. My wife was working full part-time, going back and finishing up her degree. And we still had a roommate. Okay. I couldn't afford more than $300 a month. Okay. That's where we were, but we did it. And everybody could do it. And somebody started, and a young couple starting out who don't have children yet, but they've got friends they got a friend who needs a place to live. They can get one of these houses at $175,000, $200,000, little 1,500 square foot, 1,400 square foot starter home, right? 3% on the mortgage, $650 a month, PITI all in, $850 plus PITI plus Fannie and Freddie, $800, $850 a month. You got a friend to come in and buy a room off of you for $300 a month.
Yep.
All of a sudden, you're looking at a $500 a month mortgage, and who gives a shit whether it's a 50-year note, 30-year note? It could be a 150-year note. Who gives a shit? The issue is with the note is that the bank doesn't want to fucking give you more than a 5-year balloon. That is the standard for mortgages around the world. A 5-year balloon. You pay on it. You pay on a 15-year amortization for 5 years, or a 30-year amortization for 5 years, and then the balloon payment comes due. And if not, then you roll it over into the new interest rate. And if you don't think that the fucking central banks don't know when and how to raise and lower interest rates to get people sucked in on one end and then fucked on the next end, again, that's the Bank of England model, motherfuckers. That's the thing that has to end. And that's what they don't want us to have. They don't want us to have, as Palsy pointed out earlier, interest rate security going forward, cash stream security. What is the bane of investment, folks? I say it all the time.
Insecurity.
Uncertainty. So when you look at the oil markets moving 7.5% of price every fucking week, and you're ExxonMobil, what are you thinking about? You think you're going to go take up that high risk operation out in the Gulf of America, offshore big? No, you're not. Why? Because you don't know what the fucking price of oil is going to be next week. Because the financialists over in fucking London are bombing the goddamn price every other fucking day. This is what's got to end. And this is what I outlined earlier about the whole, well, if they were going to attack our markets after the tariffs went into place, so we attacked the LBMA and the LME. The goal of that is the Chinese and the Americans are the Chinese are the industrial power, or the industrial power of the world. The United States wants to go back to being another industrial power of the world, and so do the Russians. They want to become an industrial power as well. How are they going to do that if London controls the pricing of all the strategic assets necessary to build an industry?
Yep.
They can't. So if you want to understand why the United States and China would be incentivized to work together to fuck London, I just laid it out for you. It's not that goddamn hard.
Amen. You're so right.
On that note, and on that bombshell, it's time to end, I guess.
And Tommy, it's great talking to you, man.
Hey, man, no, dude, I enjoy, dude. I have to carry.
No, Tommy's the best, man. He's like, "Hi, how are you
I
guys
know.
doing?"
No, I have to carry most shows. It's so nice to just like get in the passenger seat. So I'm not kidding, dude. It's so nice to just be like let you guys. It's a nice break. So trust me, it's.
Well, if you ever want the formula, it's take a Brit, an Italian, and a Jew, and put them together and see which one of them shuts up first. I promise you, it'll never happen.
Mix it
It'll
up.
never happen. I was gonna say it. A Brit, Italian, and Jew walks into a bar, and nobody can tell the difference between the three of them.
Yeah, they're all drunk and won't shut the fuck up. Yeah, well, I'll upload this right away. Everybody listening, go to the description, go follow the Twitters, go follow all the links are in there for everybody, all that shit. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time, and let's definitely do it again.
Anytime.
You,
All right, guys,
appreciate it,
thank
guys.
you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks for watching.